And I can say that I'm honored and humbled to sit here this evening among these women because I feel that a lot of the transformation that we are in at the moment is due to the feminine voice standing up together and rising the voice together. And here we have three women coming from different cultures, different backgrounds, with different approaches, and that they are women that are on the front line of this transformation. And so I say thank you in advance for your work and thank you for being here. Yeah. And I would like to start with Monique. I think most of us by now know what 1 billion rising is. And still, if you could give an abbreviated version of what is 1 billion rising, and also how through this movement have you experienced the rising of women?
Well, as you all know, 1 Billion Rising is a global movement to end violence against women and girls. And it's an art and activism movement. So it really utilizes dance primarily, but a host of other art forms to really break through the consciousness that we sorely need to be able to really shift the way people look at the violence that women are experiencing. Because I think as a feminist activist for 20 years, we've seen the normalization that has been happening to women with regards to rape, battery, incest, trafficking, and that it just becomes normal. So, in many, sorry. and and really where 1 Billion Rising was born was through the V-Day movement. And V-Day was another global movement to end violence against women and girls, spearheaded by the playwright Eve Ensler, who wrote the iconic, very acclaimed global play, The Vagina Monologues. So as an actor, that's how I first came into activism. I produced The Vagina Monologues in the Philippines, Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, and through doing the play, found my own voice and my own value as a woman, and then brought that awakening and that empowerment onto a much larger a platform of V-Day and also then 1 Billion Rising. So 1 Billion Vagina Monologues was born 20 years ago. So that was quite a long time ago. But 1 Billion Rising was born 6 years ago because Eve Ensler thought, we need to escalate our actions in order to really have a global call to end violence against women and girls, because even if all of us activists thought we were making some inroads and had some successes in terms of legislation and changes on the ground, we could see structures and systems in front of us that were creating new forms of violence, and that the violence was continuing to be perpetuated, continuing to get normalized. So her call for 1 Billion Rising was for 1 billion people to come together on Feb 14, which historically is Vagina Monologues Day, when we do Vagina Monologues. Victory over violence, and of course, vagina, the honoring of the woman's body and sexuality. And we didn't realize that 200 countries in 2013 would respond to the call and really gather in town squares, in schools, and just dance. And in the first year, everyone asked, why dance? Why dance? The artists understood why, but some of the very political activists said, we don't dance, we march. And we're like, okay, just give it a chance, just dance. And what really Eve envisioned was that dancing has an alchemic energy, that you use your body in your form of protesting. At the same time, your sexuality is also awakened because you're moving in a way that is divinely given to you but has been stripped away from you. And also, it's a collective action. You're dancing with sisters and brothers and in community. So that energy alone is creating personal empowerment, but also collective empowerment. But also, it's very hard to ignore for authorities and also for the media and for governments. It's very hard to ignore 1,000 people in a square dancing to end violence against women. So right away, it attracts attention. The art form attracts attention, but at the same time, it also escalates the call. And it fuse us together that political is spiritual and is sexual. Because for women, that what has been robbed away from us has been our sexual life force. That's why the 1 billion rising, the term was from the United Nations statistic that 1 in every 3 women in the world will be raped or beaten in her lifetime. So if you look at the math of that, that's a billion women. Sorry. So the staggering statistic of 1 in every 3 women will be raped or beaten feels like that is not something we can be asleep towards, that we must wake up to it, and we must wake up to it in the same, using the same medium in which we are also getting oppressed and violated, which is our bodies. That's why dance really became the resounding call to bring this transformation to a much more manifested light.
Thank you. So it's like reclaiming the body, no?
Yeah, so we call for 1 billion rising revolution, and everybody says, "Oh no, does that mean you're going to come with guns?" And I said, "No, we're just going to come with our bodies." And you'll be surprised how there's a general fear in society now of women being in their bodies, because a woman who's totally in her body, in her sexual life force, is powerful, is creative, is alive, and she can do anything. Her possibilities are endless. And so that's why you understand why patriarchy, capitalism, imperialism want to rob her off of that, because it is such an essential power force in the world.
Wow.
That's why I wanted to say something about gentle power. I know we understand that the title tonight was gentle power. But I think it's also like it's a power that, in Asia, we always say silk and steel. Silk because it flows. It is compassionate, it's full of grace and beauty. But steel because there's a formidability behind it also. That it is also a formidable force. And I think that we can say gentle in a much kind of broader context, but also not diminish the ability of a woman to create change, to create life, and to really bring us to a higher consciousness in this world where I think women, I mean, we heard in our even in our sharing today, the intuitive wisdom that is very feminine and very sacred, and it has everything to do with the body.
Thank you. I liked how you spoke about the bridges that come together, the political, the spiritual, the sexual. And I wonder if you can speak something to women's solidarity, because I feel that this is also very much at the core of this movement.
I think women essentially have really held communities together. We see it in every community. And the beauty of 1 Billion Rising, it emerged that it's really was the most grassroots communities, the most marginalized women who ended up leading a lot of the risings in 200 countries now around the world. These would be women farmers, fisher women, domestic workers, nurses, women who are largely invisible in society, but who are the most exploited and the most long suffering and long oppressed. And yet they keep the societies going. So when 1 Billion Rising came along, our first theme was just 1 Billion Rising, let's just rise. The second year, we called for 1 Billion Rising for justice, until we've all very quickly realized around the world that justice is so elusive in corrupt governments, and social justice issues have they have no legal recourse. So how, when you don't even have access to justice, how do you gain it? So the third year, it moved to 1 Billion Rising Revolution. And revolution, all women around the world embraced it fully and deeply because they could interpret what revolution meant to them. It could be a sexual revolution, a cultural revolution, an intellectual revolution, a political revolution. So it was also giving women agency as to how they wanted to express the shift in the radical shift in consciousness. A lot of people in the beginning were also scared of the word radical, but I also belong to a group in the Philippines called Gabriela, the 40-year-old women's movement. We were born out of the Marcos dictatorship a long time ago. And, we very proudly say we are a radical militant women's movement. And it's a movement that really brings in all the interconnected issues that affect women. So you can't really, as 1 Billion Rising is, you cannot talk about rape, battery, incest, or trafficking unless you also talk about war, occupation, genocide, capitalism, racism, classism. So it's finding areas where we all connect so we don't remain in silos, like it's a woman's issue, so only we'll just do that. Or if it's an environmental issue, we just do that. So 1 Billion Rising has, in a way, been an umbrella for many movements to come together. But the solidarity theme was only born last year because we realized that activists around the world, that was what they were most yearning for. Activists on the ground, especially grassroots activists, indigenous groups, workers, they know what they want and they actually know how to fight for it. They know what to do. But what they need is really a solidarity that's global, that is giving visibility to their issues so that whatever force is in front of us that is stopping us from our growth and our liberation and our freedom, it's fought for not just in a small local scale, but also in a global perspective. And I think that's been the biggest strength of 1 Billion Rising, because everyone needs solidarity. Because in many ways we are all our issues are all connected. We are not separate from Standing Rock. Our indigenous communities are suffering the same things in Asia. We are not separate from the Israel-Palestine issue because occupation is happening everywhere. We are not separate from all the issues we've been hearing in the last few days. So I think solidarity is really, and it's also not just a word, because I think a lot of us just say, oh, I'm in solidarity. But it really forces you to really think deeply. Like, is being in solidarity listening, being present? Is it understanding? Is it really being in the presence of the people whose suffering is much greater than yours? And I think for me personally, because I was an artist, I started out as an artist, I think it's really given me a perspective on privilege. Like if you are in a level of privilege, what are your responsibilities then? So I think that really have been the biggest pathways and openings of 1 Billion Rising. Solidarity. That's our theme this year as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I very much like the scales on which you're working, from the local to the global, and really in this system change level, that we can't just work towards one problem, but really have to look into the whole system.
And I think it's also, I think a lot of our systems now are totally working towards us being devoid of hope and joy. I think all of you would agree with me. So I think our biggest defiance or our biggest rebellion is to not capitulate to that, is to insist on joy, insist on hope, insist on pleasure, because that's always what's being taken away from us. Because once we've lost our spirit, as many activists go through because they're exhausted or tired, they don't move forward anymore. That's why solidarity is also important, because it makes you feel you're not alone in your struggle, and allows you to see that vision of the future, which therefore gives you hope.
Yeah, thank you very much for your work and for your being.
Thank you.
I would like to hand over to Sabine, who I think everybody knows by now. And continuing on this line of the embodiment of the woman, a lot of your work, I mean, you're the co-founder of the Global Love School, the founder of the Global Love School. And a lot of your work over the decades has been about healing these core issues of love and sexuality. And so I want to ask you why you say it, that love and sexuality are core political issues that need healing.
First of all, thank you for your powerful words. And when you mentioned the soft power I was remembered to one of the first books I wrote. It was called Soft Power and Perspectives for a New Women's Movement and a New Kind of Love Towards Men. And it's much to say to the question, but I want to start with in our history, educated in the Western world, educated in a religious way, their Eve was the one who seduced Adam with the apple which was not allowed to pick. And I studied theology and I heard this story. I could not really believe, what can people follow this? That Eve is evil because she seduced Adam. And imagine in our society, there is a kind of system. When I was young, I suddenly noticed, why do all the families close their doors? Little families, no community around. Why is this? And then I noticed, I was really young, I noticed it's because of a system of love where sexuality is only allowed in a very close area, and women are not able to be in a solidaric way because they fear that, for example, if I have a very attractive husband and my beloved friend is also attracted from him, then she has fear. And then we close, and then competition starts. And this is amazing if we start to awake to this, and that we privatized the most holy, the most universal power, which is sexuality. I don't know any person in this place which was not born out of that mother and papa, a father, had love, made love. Who speaks about this? Who makes this transparent? And who thinks about systems where solidarity, truth, and trust can be there? And so I feel if we are able to create systems where transparency and truth in love is possible, then we women, we love men. And we can say, we can share the work that our lovers can become who we want them to be. And whether we then decide to live in monogamy or whether we say, no, I love more than one man, this is more a private question, but the system must be in a way that this kind of truth can be revealed. So I tried to make some words about it. Of course, I know it's much more deep, but here I feel a real women's solidarity has to face the situation that we really notice, yes, we have a sexual power, and we can use this in a way where we don't fight the man, but where we really reveal what do we love, what don't we love, where is our yes and where is our no, and that we find really deep respect to each other. Yeah, and maybe the last thing, matter and spirit. In our society, the earth herself was treated in a way. This is not okay. Heaven there and their painful world. If we notice that water, trees, plants, fire, all of this is full of spirit, we will treat our earth in a different way. And we will love our bodies as a temple for spirit.
Thank you for the answer. And it brings me into the next question a bit, because we work a lot here with balancing water, balancing fire, balancing masculine, balancing feminine, also within ourselves. And I mean, you often speak that after patriarchy, we don't want to return to a matriarchy, but we want to find a culture of partnership. And I would love to hear from you a bit what this means. What kind of picture do you see when you really imagine a free culture of partnership?
I only can imagine a free partnership or a free culture of partnership if we come back to the sacred sources of life. And there we have to notice that we as individuals, as women and as men, we are universal, and we carry a universal power which is connected to the universe. And so we have to learn again how to unfold our sacred powers in a way that we don't have to hide them. You spoke of the dance, which is a sensual power. Imagine if we are allowed again to show this sacred power, and from there we will be guided to our intimate relationships. This is a fully kind new society, and there we have to find vessels. I think in indigenous wisdom, they know so much about it. It's so much about a memory where we notice it was misused. And we have to find back to the sacred powers of feminine and masculine. And this is much beyond us as persons. It's I think the polarity between heaven and earth, between sun and moon, it's like the sun always kisses the earth. What a new kind of life will come out of it if our new kind of churches will celebrate this kind of life. And then partnership, it's clear. And it's not only a private question, it's a universal question.
Thank you. I want to ask you the same question that I asked Monique about women's solidarity, that in building a trust-based community, what is this role of women's solidarity?
I feel the main thing is that we as women find back to our feminine energy, to our feminine power, and that we dare to share what we really love and what we don't love. And for me, it was, for example, to come through the moment. I make it simple. When I fell in love to the co-founder of Tamera, he was a very attractive man, and many women looked towards him. And for me, it was essential to, it was clear that he is attractive, and it was clear that other women will be also attracted to him. So my partnership was not on the level where I felt I have to avoid the other ones, but I had to deepen the trust, and I had to deepen the trust towards him that he doesn't lie, and that we find our common agreement. And I had to learn to trust the women. And then, after you notice, wow, if there is an attraction between the both of them, he doesn't run away. No, our relationship deepens through this. Then there is a point where I can so clearly say, if my husband will see you, he will fall in love to you directly. Would you love to have an appointment with him? I want that you share what I love with him. I don't say that this is a role model for everyone, but I only mention that this is a possibility in a society or a system of trust. And there we women have to learn that we don't lie, that we notice where is our common universal trust, energy, and why are we caretakers for Mother Earth? Yeah.
Thank you. In the beginning, you mentioned your book, Gentle Power. Apologies, it's only in German, but maybe one day soon translated. So you are deeply connected with this energy of gentle power, and I was thinking about the grace pilgrimages, for example, that you lead. What kind of power is this? Like, if you can go a bit deeper into this, what kind of power then leads into political action, but from a very different level than from a masculine line?
If the heart opens for what is happening on this globe, you want to raise your voice. It's so clear. And you don't want violence happening on this planet. And when you then notice what is happening in kind of rape, of misuse, of violence, then you look for ways, how can I take a stand? And so all my pilgrimages were driven by this kind of compassion, towards my brothers and sisters, and just to say, here I am, I want to support. And for me, it was a very, very early it started that I noticed if we come back to, I call it always tribal wisdom, if we come back to see how nature organizes always living together in community, then for me my heart is full of this. And so this guides me to go to other places, to share, to bear witness, and from there follow the inner guidance. And for me, it's not about bringing, for example, free love like a flag to other places. No, it's just to feel the nourishment, what is coming out of the inner truth, which will guide you to have compassion to this globe. And I'm very glad to have Quigua here on the stage, because I know she carries a deep wisdom of community. They stayed for centuries. There are not many indigenous tribes who still live in this kind of indigenous way together. And they need the awareness of us as a Western world to find the planetarian common partnership, cooperation way. Yes, that we carry hope. You said we carry hope. And if I look to this world, I would say the pain is growing so much, the violence is growing so much. There is a point where you say, I don't want to live anymore on this planet. Or you share hope and you share life, and life will show us the way. So I'm full of gratitude that we find each other and recognize each other as a planetarian family, really loving one planet Earth. It's only one Earth where we all together are a big family. Thank you.
Thank you for your words and your work, and thank you also for role modeling a mature woman that I can grow towards. Yeah, thank you. And in this transition, I would move to Ati. There's a mic there. So, Ati Quigua, you are very involved in politics in Colombia. And I'm wondering if you can speak to this, what kind of role you take, especially connected with your indigenous roots and your feminine wisdom. How do these things come together?
Buenas noches. Un gusto estar con estas mujeres maravillosas. Muchas gracias por la traducción y también veo que están todos aquí presentes. Gracias.
So thank you very much and good evening to all. Thank you for the possibility of being with all of you here, for all the translation that's happening and for the presence of everybody I see here.
Hay que parar la destrucción.
We have to stop the destruction.
En la cosmovisión del pueblo Kogi Arhuaco, de la nación donde vengo, la mujer es símbolo de la tierra.
In the cosmovision of the Kogi Arhuaco nation where I come from, woman is la mujer es el símbolo de
la tierra.
The woman is the symbol of the earth.
Así que las mujeres de mi país, indígenas, vienen haciendo un trabajo de defender sus territorios.
So the women of the tribes I come from have been doing this work of defending their lands.
Y enfrentan 4 cosas muy fuertes.
And they have to face 4 very hardcore things.
El conflicto del país,
the conflict of the country of Colombia,
la exclusión,
the exclusion,
el racismo,
racism,
y aún así están de pie.
And nevertheless, they are standing.
Por ejemplo, al norte, en La Guajira,
in the north, in La Guajira,
las mujeres Wayuu piden la libertad del río.
The women of Wayuu ask for the freedom of the river,
que fue cercado, apresado para extraer carbón.
which a river that was diverted and kept dry to extract carbon.
17 millones de metros cúbicos diarios gasta,
17 million cubic meters of water are kept every day,
mientras sus hijos mueren de sed.
while their children die of thirst.
Esta es la geopolítica de la sed.
That's the geopolitics of thirst.
Es genocidio cultural.
It's a cultural genocide.
Los niños no se mueren
The
de sed, de hambre.
Children don't die from thirst or hunger.
A los niños los matan
They
de
are
sed
killed.
y de hambre.
The children are being killed
Así
of
que
thirst and hunger.
estas 3 empresas inglesas
So these 3 English companies
remuestran las relaciones que tenemos que transformar con la ayuda de todos.
they show us the state of the world that we, with the help of everybody, need to transform.
Para las mujeres indígenas es claro que la violencia directa, estructural y simbólica, cultural,
For the indigenous woman, it is clear that the violence is strategical, direct, and cultural.
es la misma.
And it's the same for all.
Y así en toda la tierra.
And that's like this on the whole
Así que
planet.
quiero honrar a Berta Cáceres, a todas las mujeres que sienten este vínculo con la tierra, con la vida, y en medio de los distintos contextos, aún así siguen danzando, cantando, sembrando, haciendo trabajo por la paz.
So I want to honor all the women that stand up, that even though all of the difficulties they face, they keep dancing, singing, raising their voice, standing for what they love.
Las mujeres indígenas de la Amazonía de mi país, ellas me dicen, vivimos en una tierra de abundancia.
The women in the Amazon of the country I live in tell me we live in an area of abundance.
Vamos a pescar al río,
We go fishing in the river.
sembramos,
We seed.
tenemos espacio y tiempo para nuestro bienestar.
We have time and space for our well-being.
La pobreza llega cuando llega la minera a contaminarme el río,
And poverty comes when the minery comes to contaminate our rivers.
o cuando fumigan con glifosato
Or when they go spray glyphosate,
los desechos de la Segunda Guerra Mundial sobre nuestros bosques.
which is the rubbish from the Second World War, and they put it on our forests.
Ahí empieza el empobrecimiento.
This is where we start to get poor.
Así que todas estas voces silenciosas, invisibles, son las que me dan el valor de liderar una campaña en mi país para reconocer que la tierra tiene derechos.
So it is all of those silent and invisible voices that give me the courage to start a political campaign in my country to go and protect the earth.
Y esta es una agenda que nos une en gran parte de América
And this is an agenda that unites us in vast areas of the Americas.
y que yo le pediría a Martín que incluyéramos en nuestra declaración aquí como equipo de reconocer los derechos de la Madre Tierra a un nivel político de nuestra Constitución.
And so I would really ask Martin to include it in the manifesto we are putting together to defend the rights of Mother Earth as part of really to include it into our constitutions.
Basado en esta perspectiva,
Based on this perspective,
la paz es con la naturaleza,
peace is with nature,
porque la base de los conflictos es por los recursos.
because the base of the conflicts is for the resources.
Así que reconocer que todos somos hijos de la tierra
So we got to recognize we're all children of the earth.
es la posibilidad de recuperar nuestra humanidad común.
This is the possibility that we regain our common humanity,
Y no ver la tierra como una cosa para poseer,
and not to look at the earth as something you can possess,
sino la tierra como un sujeto mismo de la cual todos somos parte, incluyendo la comunidad de los animales, las plantas.
but to look at her as a being to which all of us belong, including all the plants and animals.
Thank you. Wow, what a power. Listening to you now, I remembered that you were very inspired by seeing the solar village. And I'm curious if there are, if you can see hope in models of decentralization, or if you can speak into the vision of how you can see healing come into Colombia.
Me llena profundamente ver que ya hay iniciativas para superar la economía del petróleo y de los combustibles fósiles.
Okay. I'm profoundly filled with hope, seeing that there is models for us to live independently from fossil fuels, from coal, from everything.
Que son limpias,
energy sources that are clean,
que permiten autonomía y libertad,
that allow for autonomy and freedom.
Es decir, que desde cada hogar,
saying that from each house.
Así que cuando veo la cocina solar,
so to see the solar kitchen,
pienso en mi país,
I think about my country.
Que podría ser el primero en biodiversidad del mundo.
My country that could be the richest in biodiversity in the whole world.
Y digo, ¿cómo vamos a intercambiar conocimiento?
And I ask myself, how are we going to exchange knowledge?
No podemos esperar tanto tiempo, tiene que ser ya.
And we can't really wait so long, we have to start now.
Y una política de autonomía y libertad energética.
And the politic of energetic and autonomy in the energy area.
Complementada con una organización de la vida en torno al ciclo del agua.
Organized with a society that follows the rules of the cycle of the water.
Como la base de un sistema de vida.
As a base for the system of life.
Como el ciclo del agua es la base de la estructura socioeconómica.
If the water cycle is the basics of the socioeconomic structures.
Y la estructura funcional de servicios.
And also the structure of services is organized like the cycle of water.
Es un principio básico ancestral de ordenamiento del territorio.
This is like an ancestral basics for how to organize the territory.
Y el ciclo agroalimentario.
And the agronutritional cycles.
Que parte por cuidar la semilla nativa.
That starts by taking care of the original seeds.
Reservas comunitarias.
To have communitarian reserves.
Para cuidar la biodiversidad.
To protect biodiversity.
Fortalecer los mercados locales.
Strengthen the local markets.
Generar unos intercambios justos.
Create just exchanges.
Un consumo consciente.
And a conscient consumerism.
Una cultura alimentaria de paz.
A food culture of peace.
No más agrotóxicos y transgénicos en nuestra madre tierra.
No more agrotoxics or transgenics on our Mother Earth.
Así que la agenda de las mujeres indígenas es sencilla, es vital.
So the agenda of the indigenous woman is simple and vital.
Suelos vivos,
life soils,
agua limpia,
clean water,
aire para sanar,
air which you can heal in,
energía libre,
and free energy.
Es la cosmogeopolítica.
That's the cosmogeopolitics.
De la felicidad,
of happiness,
del bienestar,
of well-being,
del abastecimiento,
of supply. Thank you.
Es reconocer la economía de la naturaleza.
It's recognizing, understanding the economy of nature.
Que es la base de la economía de subsistencia.
Which is the basics of a of an economy of subsistence.
Y que la humanidad se levante.
And that humanity rises.
Para impedir que la economía de mercado.
To stop the market economy.
Sacrifique la capacidad regenerativa de la tierra,
to sacrifice the regeneration powers of earth,
los sistemas que sostienen las comunidades locales
to sacrifice the systems that keep the local population alive,
para volver la vida una mercancía,
to turn life into something you can sell,
para la biopiratería,
for biopiratry,
para esa globalización empresarial
for this globalization of market,
que piensa que todo es para poseer y privatizar.
that thinks that everything is there to be belonged and sold
Así que
and privatized.
estos procesos de organización para defender nuestros bienes comunes
So this process of organization to defend our common goods
necesitan avivar el espíritu de familia de la tierra, de comunidad,
needs to put alive the spirit of community of life.
necesitamos procesos transformativos con un horizonte de largo plazo,
We need transformation processes with a long-term horizon,
con un diálogo intercultural.
with an intercultural dialogue.
Cada vez tenemos que pasar del multiculturalismo, que son sociedades paralelas, a sociedades más integradas.
We have to come from the multiculturalism that has culture separated to an integrated culture,
Con un principio ético de base,
with a underlying ethical guideline,
la defensa de la diversidad en la humanidad,
defending diversity in humanity
la defensa de la diversidad en la naturaleza.
and defending diversity in nature.
Nuestra lucha es contra la homogenización,
Our fight is against homogenization,
a la esclavitud del mercado.
against the slavery of the market.
Y esto implica reconocer que la crisis no es ecológica, la crisis es política.
And that implies recognizing that the crisis is not ecological, it is political.
Así que defender la semilla
So we got to defend the seeds
es cuestionar los tratados de libre comercio,
and really question the free trade markets
los tratados de propiedad intelectual.
and the treaties of intellectual property.
Es aquí donde desde nuestro fogón, desde nuestra cocina, desde reconocer que el aporte más grande que ha hecho la mujer fue haber domesticado la semilla. Para mí esta es la revolución femenina más grande que hemos hecho en la historia.
And so, coming from our kitchens, from our ovens, we got to recognize that the biggest revolution that women started was to domestify seeds. For me, this is the biggest revolution that women have ever started.
Porque cuando la mujer domesticó la semilla hace 10,000 años,
Because when 10,000 years ago women started taking care for seeds,
surgió la agricultura, la cultura de la tierra
that's when agriculture was created, the culture of the earth
y las grandes civilizaciones.
and the big civilizations.
Esto, para mí, es un reto,
And this for me is a challenge,
un mundo sin hambre.
a world without hunger.
Thank you. I would like to ask you a final question as a follow-up. From your knowledge, from your heart, the balance that is needed to really make this radical shift, what you speak about, the balance of the masculine and the feminine, how do you see it that we come there to find this balance again? And maybe in addition, what roles do we then take, and how do we support each other to recognize the other?
En nuestra cosmovisión de origen,
In our original cosmovision,
el agua y la tierra es femenina.
water and earth are feminine.
El aire, el sol son masculinos.
Air and sun are masculine.
Y están en cooperación
And they are in cooperation
para que la vida prospere,
for life to thrive.
no en competencia.
They are not in competition.
Así que no debemos competir,
So we should not be in competition.
debemos cooperar.
We should cooperate.
Necesitamos un nuevo liderazgo
We need a new kind of leadership
que no sea individual,
that not be individual,
que no busque dominar,
that does not seek dominance,
un empoderamiento,
that is an empowerment.
una inteligencia colectiva
We need a collective intelligence
que trabaje con la inteligencia de la naturaleza.
that works together with the intelligence of nature.
No es cierto que el ser humano sea egoísta.
It is not right for the human being to be egoistic.
El ser humano es solidario por naturaleza.
Human being by nature is solidaric.
Eso depende en qué escuela filosófica te inscribes o inscribes a tus hijos.
That just depends in which philosophical school you subscribe yourself or your children.
Cuando escucho los niños y los jóvenes,
When I hear the children and the youth,
quiero reconocer el trabajo de las madres y padres que están aquí.
I want to acknowledge the work of those youth.
Necesitamos carácter espiritual.
We need a spiritual character.
Perdón, ¿me recuerdas la última parte?
What was the last part?
About how the masculine and feminine can cooperate with each other, how they can support each other when they're in their actual roles.
Para que el ciclo del agua se pueda realizar,
For the cycle of water to manifest,
hoy tuvimos la oportunidad de reflexionar la importancia del sol.
we today had the opportunity of thinking about the importance of the sun
Para mover este ciclo.
to move this cycle.
Así que vamos a necesitar de la fuerza masculina
So we will need the male power
para mover el cambio
to move the change.
hacia este horizonte transformativo de largo plazo.
So, and this is this long-term horizon
Pero
of
en
change.
una feminidad y masculinidad sagrada,
But we're talking about a sacred femininity and masculinity,
de respeto profundo
Of-
en nuestras relaciones.
of a deep respect in our relations.
Y las relaciones con todos los seres y especies de la tierra.
And that also goes, this respect also goes to all animals and beings on earth.
No podemos seguir en un ecofascismo
We cannot continue in ecofascism,
de pensar que tenemos unos derechos desde una perspectiva antropocéntrica.
that to think that we have rights that come from an anthropocentric perspective.
Tenemos que pasar a una perspectiva biocéntrica,
We need to change into a biocentric perspective,
donde el Estado, el mercado y la sociedad esté al servicio de la vida y no la vida al servicio del mercado.
where market, state, and organizations are at the service of life and not life in the service of the market.
Así que no se trata de luchar contra los hombres,
So it is not about fighting against men,
sino cómo hombres y mujeres hacemos comunidades que cooperen con la vida.
but how we, men and women, can create communities that cooperate with nature.
Y sanar todas nuestras relaciones
And to heal all of our relationships
implica una visión del mundo
implies a vision of the world,
que supere una mirada mecánica.
a worldview that overcomes a mechanic way of
Porque una
thinking.
mirada mecánica requiere solo ajustes instrumentales.
Because a mechanic worldview will only require adjustments of details,
O una mirada económica,
or an economic view,
como si el problema se resolviera con algunos bienes y servicios.
as if the problems would be solved with some goods and services.
Una mirada holística
A holistic worldview
nos permite observar todas nuestras relaciones.
will allow us to look and observe all of our relationships.
Por ejemplo, la relación que la mujer tiene con la luna.
For example, the connection the women have with the moon.
La luna tiene un periodo de 28 días,
Moon has a 28 days period,
que son los mismos ciclos.
and it's the same cycles.
Necesitamos recordar quiénes somos,
We have to remember who we are
qué pasa con nuestros ciclos,
and what happens to our cycles.
cuándo somos creativas,
When are we creative?
cuándo somos fértiles,
When are we fertile?
y trabajar en recuperar estos tiempos vitales sagrados
And to work into regaining those sacred, vital cycles and timings.
el hombre debe armonizarse con los biorritmos de la naturaleza y de la mujer nuevamente.
And the man has to harmonize himself to the biorhythms of the women and of nature.
Este es una tarea urgente.
That's an urgent task.
El sistema está organizado para irrespetar hasta los momentos más importantes como el nacimiento.
The system is built to disrespect even the most important moments like a birth.
Por miles y miles de años,
For thousands and thousands of years,
esta fue la posición como parimos nuestros hijos.
this was the position we gave birth in.
Así tenemos fuerza,
So this way we have power,
porque la fuerza de la tierra nos ayuda.
because the power of the earth helps us.
Necesitamos volver a parir bien nuestros hijos.
We have to go back to giving birth well to our children.
No anestesia.
No anesthetics.
Necesitamos hijos despiertos.
We need awake children.
Si somos capaces de parir bien nuestros hijos, tendrán un sistema inmunológico más fuerte.
If we can give birth healthily to our children, they will have a stronger immune system.
Concebir de manera consciente nuestros hijos.
We have to conceive our children consciously.
Somos hijos del estado mental, emocional, espiritual y físico de nuestra madre y nuestro padre biológico.
We are children of the mental, spiritual, and bodily states of our parents.
Así que debemos cuidar, eso le llamamos zayunkana en nuestra lengua.
We have to take care for something we call ajunkana in our language.
Cuidar la semilla humana.
To take care for the human seed.
Lactar nuestros hijos. Cada especie tiene su leche.
And to give milk to our children by ourselves. Every species has their own milk.
No somos terneros.
We are not little cows.
Así que sagradamente, aunque sea 6 meses, debemos lactar nuestros hijos.
So in a sacred way, we should give breast to our children at least for half a year.
Y esto debe ser un asunto importante de la vida y 4 meses en la ley es una violación al sagrado derecho a ser lactado por la madre.
And this needs to be an official important issue because the law only gives us 4 months of lactation break, and this is just a violation of the right of receiving your mother's milk.
Y la sexualidad sagrada
And the sacred sexuality
es la base
is the basis
de esta vida del bienestar.
of this well-being life.
Pero es un capítulo
But that's a chapter on its own.
que nos daría, y ya se me acabó el tiempo, solo
I believe my time is already gone.
decirles que la mejor hora, de acuerdo a mi cultura,
But to say that according to my culture, the best time
es en la madrugada,
is in the early morning hours
con los propósitos de la comunidad.
with the purposes of the community. Like madrugada is really early, like before sunrise,
Cuando el sol está naciendo,
during sunrise,
mirándose a los ojos,
looking into each other's eyes,
juntando el corazón con el corazón,
uniting heart and heart,
alineando todas las dimensiones del ser,
putting all the dimensions of the being together.
la conciencia,
Consciousness,
los sentimientos,
the feelings,
el espíritu
the spirit,
y el cuerpo.
and the body.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm deeply moved after this hour, and I realize that we only are at the beginning. And I want to say thank you for this beginning, that we could look into such incredible women figures who are standing up for themselves, for their next generations, for the Mother Earth, and also for the men. Wow. Yeah. And a special thank you also to Micah for your incredible power of language. Yeah, a common thread is the level of communication that is possible on this stage. Thank you for this hour. Thank you for all that was shared. And I would love to invite one of the women to make a short prayer, if there is resonance beside me. And while they think...
¿Y después? No te escuché. ¿Quieres hacer una oración?
Una, y si, bueno, si viene otra también.
He wants to do one. ¿Te coges el otro micrófono? ¿O necesitas que tú le...
Sí, me lo puedes tener, por favor. Porque necesito las manos. Sí. Bueno, si nos ponemos de pie un minuto.
If we could get up for a moment.
Y vamos a llevar las manos al centro.
Let's take our hands to the center.
El dedo con el que manejamos todas las herramientas al centro de la mano.
And bring also the thumb, the one finger that makes us able to create all our tools and use them also into the center.
Con la conciencia de que somos una sola familia humana.
With the consciousness that we're one big human family.
La mano izquierda donde guardamos la semilla.
The left hand to where we keep our seed.
Como compromiso de cuidar la semilla humana.
As a commitment to care for the human seed.
Nuestras aguas internas y externas.
Our inner and outer waters.
Nuestro primer territorio, que es nuestro cuerpo.
Our first territory, which is our body.
Y la tierra.
And the earth.
La mano derecha.
The right hand.
Arriba.
Up.
Como conciencia de que somos uno con el cosmos.
As a consciousness that we are one with the cosmos.
El sol, la luna y todas las estrellas.
Sun, moon and all the stars.
Y vamos a decir, somos uno.
And let's say, somos uno, we are one.
Somos uno con el agua,
with the water,
con la tierra, con el aire, con el sol, en pensamiento, en corazón, en espíritu y cuerpo, con las plantas, con los animales, con los minerales y la diversidad humana. Y lo llevamos al corazón.
And we bring it to the heart.
Hoy y siempre.
Today and always.
Infinitas gracias.
Infinite.
Por este tiempo. Por este espacio. Duni bababa. Duni bababa. Duni bababa. Duni bababa.
Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias. So thank you to these beautiful women